Hey John, how you doing? I'm actually in Boscombe at the moment, which is in Devon, as you may well know. Not Devon, what am I talking about? In Dorset, in Bournemouth. Come down here for a few days. Gustavo, how you doing? So we've come down here for a few days. Watch it, young man. During the holiday season. And I'm just driving towards the pier to see if there's any lights there at all while I chat. Yeah, so doing well, John, doing well. Had a fantastic party this afternoon with my family. I brought my kids down, obviously, but one of my married couples also joined us. They travelled down. They made the drive down and joined us for a nice Hanukkah party, which was real fun. It was good times. Lots of presents given out. It was a good time. I'm about to light a cigar, but I need to just find a nice little spot to park up. Well, it's 10:13 here, PM. So I guess you've got some shopping time left in Arizona. You can still go out and get your last minute goodies, last minute prezzies. To read your messages in a minute properly. There we go. That looks nice. Well, if I get too close, we're not going to see it, are we? Let's see if we can see something here. We'll get up on the road. Well, you can just about make out the... I'll see if I can get a bit closer, actually. They haven't locked it all up. Zombies, hi Pipehead, how you doing? Pipehead Oregon. Well, this is actually right on the beach. Usually, in the summer certainly, this road here would be chock-a-block with cars. You can see the little chalets over there on the right. I don't know how much lights you can see. You can see the little huts there. Just about make them out probably. Those are rented out in the summer, and you see all the typical British postcard kind of scenes playing out with the generally tends to be sort of retired or semi-retired people just relaxing, listening to the Archers on Radio 4. Bum ba bum ba bum ba bum bum ba dum ba da dum dum da dum da dum da dum dum di 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 da dum. You know, the Archers? Yes, indeed, sand and beach. I think this road alongside the beach goes all the way up to the Bournemouth pier. I'm in the Southbourne Boscombe pier, but the road I think goes quite a way down. But I think at some point you have to turn around because it does have a bit of a dead end. So I'm gonna turn around in a sec and maybe park up and light my cigar, and then I can read my messages properly. Looks like somebody else has had the similar idea of parking up. So the lights off in the background, slightly to the left of your picture. That's Bournemouth Pier, I think. So I think I'm going to do a swift U-ey over here. There you go. Alright, so let's get you guys on my other screen so I can see what we're doing. Okay. Right, let's see who's here first of all. So John Gustavo, seen you. Senovio Pereira. You're the guy in Phoenix, cool. I hope you managed to get everything that you're looking for in your shopping. Jordan, Merry Christmas to you too, my friend. Pipehead, run. Hammer it. I did hammer it a little bit on the way back. Sea Smokes, how you doing? Sea Smoke Pipes. All doing well. Sam Online, Dublin Pipe, how you doing? I'm sure you are in the pub. To be sure. Robert Creel, Merry Christmas to you. Josh, Pipe Grab, how you doing? You can't stay, I can fully understand that. Today especially. You're a bit drunk. Yeah, I believe you. So tonight I've brought with me a limited edition. This is a Ramon Ayones, excuse me, or as some English people would call it, a Raymond All Ones 2015 limited edition. This was called the Club Ayones, I think it's actually written on here, yeah. Club Ayones 2015. So 4 years. Excuse me while I cough. 4 years on this one. Happy Hanukkah to you too, Donstad. How you doing? Or Danstad? Just about to light my cigar. So I'm down at the coast, the Dorset coast, in Boscombe. I'm actually staying in Southbourne, which is about 10-15 minutes drive from Bournemouth. The cigar smells good as I'm toasting the foot. Alright. How you doing, Chad? Merry Christmas to you. Hope you're doing well. I caught the tail end of Steph's and Skip's video. And I see that you won yourself a pipe or two there, Chad. Hi Ken, how you doing? You're driving, cool. We actually came here earlier in the day, earlier this afternoon, and we were watching some, the weather was atrocious today. It was actually absolutely bucketing it down today. There's quite a bit of flooding around. We drove past quite a few places which were flooded. And we went onto the Bournemouth pier and we were watching some surfers doing their best to try and surf. But as I was telling the kids, it's not quite Australia. The waves here never really get that high. You know, you maybe get 3 or 4 foot waves. That's about it. So what pipe did you win there, Chad? I saw one of the comments said that you won 2 pipes, is that right? Well, the kids are in bed and the wife is safely ensconced with her headphones and her phone, catching up on whatever it is she likes to watch. We have very, very different tastes of stuff to watch. And never the twain shall meet, I think. I didn't actually see the quiz. I actually caught the tail end of it, but I don't know how it works. She calls out a tune and you have to answer it immediately or something? What's to stop anybody Googling something? Or well, I suppose you could. It's all obviously done in good nature, but That Tinsky was very, very big that you sent to Tim there, John. It was quick, right? I popped into a tobacconist today called, very originally, The Pipe Shop. I think it's the only real tobacconist left here in the south, at least in this area, in Dorset, in Bournemouth. Perhaps there's more around Dorset generally, but in Bournemouth certainly, that's the only pipe shop that I'm aware of. Been there before. I think I've done a little clip of it in the past. If you search my channel, you'll probably see it. I was going to do another clip today, try to interview the owner, but he wasn't there. His wife was there, but the shop was very busy and it just wouldn't have been appropriate, so I didn't record at all in the shop. I did a little clip outside, which I actually uploaded on IG and Facebook today. But a very, very nice, quaint little shop. I would say about half the shop is dedicated to vaping, and probably the next biggest thing is pipe tobacco, and then a small section for cigars. But a really nice shop, a decent selection all round. A lot of bulk blends, British bulk blends, you know, Gareth Hogarth, Samuel Gareth. They had some tins, they had some Chariton tins, they had some Peterson tins, not the old Dunhill blend by Peterson, but the general Peterson normal lines. I did get a tobacco. I kind of hummed and hawed about it because much of the stuff was aromatic. Bournemouth is pretty much a retirement town. It's a seaside town. I haven't heard about cannabis vaping, to be honest. I'm not into pot or marijuana or any of that kind of stuff. I've never actually partaken in it, and I have no interest in it. So I don't really know is the honest answer. But yeah, I have seen just here, actually up the road, one of these medicinal marijuana shops, which are becoming legal, I think. I can't remember what it's called, CBD or something like that. Some initials, I don't remember what they're called, but I saw one here actually on the high street. So about half the shop was vapes. They had a few pipes. Actually, I did see some really, really nice pipes. They were called Viking pipes. Not sure if I've actually seen that make before. But sadly, CBD, right, okay. But sadly, I didn't see any with 9mm filters. The interesting thing is that she said she's been there for about 15 years. And she said when she first started, everything was 9mm filters. And now most of the pipes that she gets in are non-9mm, which I thought was the opposite. I actually thought that 9mm was really starting to pick up. So I was quite surprised to hear her say that. But they only had a really small selection of pipes. But the Viking ones, not heard of them before, but they actually really looked very, very nice. Nicely finished, nicely stained. Economy level, but really nice. They had a nice wooden insert, a wooden adornment, a band on them. They were about 40 or 50 pounds. And if she would have had the 9mm one, I probably would have bought one. It's a shame, I actually should have taken some pictures of it. I wonder if it's in my clip, if they're in my clip from last time. They had a few Molinas and a couple of and a few basket pipes, but all told, they probably had about 40 or 50 pipes tops, if that. So I didn't buy a pipe. I bought one cigar. I bought a Monte Cristo No. 2, which I hadn't had for a while. I was going to buy some Cohiba Robustos, but they were just quite priced too much for me. They were £35 for each cigar. So you're talking about $40, $45 for a cigar, which I wasn't going to do. a reasonable selection of cigars, but I ended up with Monte Cristo number 2. But tonight I'm smoking a Ramon Allones Club Allones from 2015, limited edition. $25 to $30 weed shops. Whoa. So that CBD stuff, how is it taken? Is it taken in the form of a cigarette? Or is it taken as a vape? Good evening, Daniel. How are you doing? Because if it's taken as a cigarette, I mean, obviously weed is taken in a cigarette, pot and whatever, but this CBD stuff, I'm surprised that it's attracting such a positive attitude if it's gonna still have people smoking it and inhaling smoke. I'm on the south coast of England, just a quick hop from Calais in France. But I'm on the Bournemouth coast. Yeah, it's a pain in the neck when you can't park. The pipe shop where I went this morning was also not the easiest place to park. I had to park a few streets away and walk back, which is not the end of the world, but if you're short of time and you know, not ideal. But being on a little short vacation, I didn't mind. Ken, are you saying that as a positive thing? That the cannabis kills the cells before they become cancerous? That is a very good cigar, Daniel. I'd probably say that's probably my number one non-Cuban cigar nowadays. The interesting thing about non-Cuban cigars is that once you hit the premium level, first of all, the premium level cigars, and I'm not talking about Padrons where it's stupid money. Well, some of the Padrons anyway. But, you know, things like Siri V Melanios and some of the other, well, all of the hand-rolled cigars, pricing is fantastic. You know, if you get a Cuban cigar and then you jump to, say, a limited edition Cuban cigar or a Cohiba, especially a Cohiba limited edition, you're going to double and triple in price per stick, per cigar. But in the US, the non-Cubans, the premium cigars tend to be all around, anything from $5 up to maybe $12, $13, $14 max. The price of cigars is great, in the US. It really is. I don't know if it's a lot for what it used to be, but it certainly seems to be a great price. Cheers, Robert. Thanks for joining. Imperator Nero, good evening. How are you doing? Lone Star Piper, Merry Christmas to you too. Yeah, it's a very good cigar, Daniel. If you had the bellicoso shape, those are really good. I mean, the flavors are pretty similar in all of the shapes, all the vitolas of the Serie V Milanio. I think my preferred one is probably the Perfecto, the one which is tapered at both ends. But the one that I smoke the most is probably the Robusto. Although I do have a box of Churchills at home, but I tend to smoke the Robustos more. Actually, I might have finished the Churchills, I'm not sure. They come in boxes of 10s, so it doesn't take that long. I'm smoking a Ramon Allones, Clavellones. A really tasty cigar from 2015. And this is my second box, also come in boxes of 10. And I must be honest, the first box I had, I really didn't enjoy them that much. I think this may actually be my third box. I think I had a box when they first came out. And the thing with Cuban limited editions is that in order for them to be edición limitada, the leaf is supposed to be 3 to 5 years aged before it's even rolled. And then by the time they've rolled them, by the time they hit the market, they're always about a year late. So by the time you're getting it, the leaf should be 5-6 years old. The burn is a bit wonky, it's true, but it could be to do with the car I've got the fan on and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, the construction on these was never awesome to start with. Although the draw on this one is really pretty good. Although the flavour is starting to change a little bit now, starting to thin out a bit. Just try and straighten out the burn a bit. Yes, the limited editions are very, very heavily faked, but usually it's just the main brands. So the Cohiba is the most faked. They're called Fojibas because they're faked so much. The Cohibas, you do have to be careful, and you just have to make sure that you know where you're buying it from. People that go to Cuba, that's probably where the most fakes are, ironically. Where you might expect them to be the cheapest there in Cuba, but they're not. And the best cigars are not that readily available in Cuba. Oh, it's just lashed all over me. Because they're exporting all the decent cigars, so Cuba itself doesn't have a huge. I mean, there are some official Habanos SA outlets there. You've got the Partagas shop and so on. But certainly in the Cohibas certainly are the most faked cigars. You just have to buy it from a reliable source. It's as simple as that. There's loads of them available online, and if it's too cheap to be true, then it's too good to be true, then it probably is too good to be true. Daniel, in terms of the Pyramides style head where the cap is tapered, with a Cuban cigar, well, sorry, you had a Serie V Milano, so it shouldn't have been a tight roll, but it really depends how much of the cap you're cutting. Did you use a straight cut? What did you use? A V cut? How did you cut the cap there, Daniel? Happy Christmas and Hanukkah to you too, Jeffrey. Yeah, Ken, if you're buying online, I would highly recommend places like Havanas. That's where I buy my cigars from most of the time. There's a couple of places in Spain, there's a place in Belgium that I buy from, but mostly I buy from, so the place in Belgium, for instance, I can buy single cigars. I can go through their price list and just tick off, I'll have a couple of those, one of those, 5 of those, and they're a reasonable price compared to the UK, but they're nowhere near as reasonable as buying by the box from the proper sort of the online warehouses that are shipping out thousands of boxes, and they don't mess around with single cigars. The prices in Havanas, and they have promotions every month. So every month there's usually 10 or 15 lines which they have on knockdown. So if a box of cigars, say, is $200, then the promotion one might take it down to $160 or something like that. Cheers, Jordan, all the best. Yeah, so a V-cut, a lot of people do use a V-cut on the tapered heads, but it actually needs to be quite a deep cut. Because obviously the head is tapered, so when you cut the V, you're cutting it at a very small footprint, if you like. So, I mean, generally speaking, what I would recommend, it's my personal preference, that when you're dealing with a tapered head, that you actually use a straight cutter and cut it at a slight angle. So obviously it's still not going to be as wide as a straight cut, as a normal straight cut, because it's tapered. But if you do it at an angle, you're getting again a wider footprint of airspace, if you like, of the cut area. The wider the cut area, the better the smoke is going to be. The better the purer the smoke is going to, the longer it's going to last, without tasting bitter. As soon as you have a narrow opening at the cap, you know, I remember when I first had my first ever cigar, I think, my first ever closed cap cigar, which had to be cut. I didn't actually cut it. I knew nothing about cigars. I was probably in my 20s. We're talking about 30 years ago. I just pierced the tip with a match, and it actually smoked very well. Surprisingly enough, it must have been a really open, an openly rolled cigar. For a Cuban, that would have been quite amazing. But generally speaking, if you're going to cut a cigar, you want a straight path for the smoke to come into your mouth. As soon as it's tapered, then you're kind of you're bottlenecking the smoke. You're forcing it to concentrate. Once it concentrates, then the tar builds up, and over the length of the cigar, it starts to get bitter. So a straight cut, as wide as you can. Obviously, you don't want to go below the cap, because then you start to unravel the wrapper. But you just need to have a pretty much full width cut. You want to cut it maybe just a millimeter before it becomes full width, so that it's called a shoulder. So you kind of, if your diameter is, I don't know, 20 millimeters, you want to cut it at around 18 or 19 mil. A punch cut, I would basically comment the same as I just said. I've used the punch cut. I went through all of them. I started off with a punch cut. I then went to a V cut, and then I think I actually started with a straight cut, and then discovered the punch, went to the punch, enjoyed it. I think I liked the novelty of it more than anything else, and the compactness of the actual cutter. Merry Christmas to you too. Then I had the Culinary V-cut, which is an awesome V-cutter. It really is the best V-cutter that I've used anyway. Razor sharp, a really deep V, so you get plenty of cut area. But I still prefer the straight cut. Hey Brandon. Hey Snoopy. We're looking at the south coast of England at the moment. You can just about catch the waves there. If I'd be with somebody else, I would get out of the car and leave the lights on, and then take the camera right up to the water. But I'm not. I'm on my own, so I'm not going to leave the car running. It actually is a very nice night because it was really, really. We had torrential rain almost most of the day. So in actual fact, the sky is really clear. You can really see a really starry night actually. But I don't have my binoculars with me. I usually bring them with me whenever I go away, because when you're in London, the light pollution is so high that you can't see very much. So when I'm out of London, I tend to take them with me so I can look at the night sky. I used to be heavily into the night sky. There was a time when I had a couple of telescopes and I could really identify all the constellations, a couple of the other interesting spots in the sky. My favourite Christmas meal, well, I don't have a Christmas meal, but today we had a fairly standard sort of meal, like a weekend meal. We had roast chicken, potatoes, some salad. It wasn't a grand meal or anything like that. We just had a regular hot meal, to be honest. But tomorrow, hi Paul, the Piper, how you doing? Tomorrow I'll be making, whenever we go away, I tend to do the cooking. My wife looks forward to that, and it's just a nice difference, and I'm relaxed enough to be able to just spend some time in the kitchen. I do enjoy doing that. Anyhow, I'm making tomorrow a shoulder of lamb. I've got some chestnut mushrooms, which I'm gonna probably saute with some onions and perhaps with some herbs, or as you say in the States, herbs. What else? Don't know what else we'll have with that. Maybe some rice. But I do make a really good, even if I say so myself, I make a good shoulder of lamb. if you want the recipe, get your pen and paper together. Well, actually, I don't do mine with mint sauce. What I do, the way I do mine, if you're interested, is now you're getting there. You're getting closer there, Imperator. So what I do is I rub mine with olive oil first of all, and if I've got fresh rosemary, then I'll take sprigs of fresh rosemary and sort of make some holes, pierce the skin of the shoulder and stuff in some of that rosemary. I used to spend much more time on it, but in actual fact I didn't really feel that there was better flavour. So what I do now is I simply rub it with olive oil, then I spray it liberally with dried rosemary, stuff that you get in the supermarket. You know, the little sort of bits of rosemary. Almost cover it completely in that, and then I get 4 whole bulbs of garlic, and I cut them across halfway. So there's eight kind of halves of full bulbs of garlic, and those are around in the together in the tin, and those are actually delicious to eat on their own afterwards. They become like a mousse almost, so soft. The garlic really becomes like a paste. And then there's usually 3 or 4 tins of peeled but not mashed plum tomatoes, and I'll cut those roughly in there. There's usually some shallots, and I don't usually put a carb in there. You know, once in a while I'd put in potatoes or something like that, but I don't anymore. I don't put anything else in there. It's just the lamb, tomatoes or tomatoes, the onions or shallots, the garlic and the rosemary, and then a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and that's it. It goes in uncovered for about half an hour to 3/4 of an hour on quite a high heat, just to seal it. Then I'll cover it, turn it down, and leave it in there for 3 or 4 hours. And when I take it out after that, it literally is fall off the bone. And that's absolutely delicious. It gets licked clean. The kids love it. And you know, little kids, sometimes they're really fussy about their food, but they all go through that like a dose of salts. So hopefully that will be on the menu tomorrow, all being well. Yeah, that's the best part, is that the garlic and the tomatoes, they all taste of the lamb, and it's just delicious. So if you have it with rice or whatever it is you have it with, you mix it in together, the whole thing just tastes of lamb. It's fantastic. I would probably spend more time with steak, but the rest of the family doesn't like it. My wife doesn't like steak. She doesn't like anything that's rare. So she wants everything well done, and so it's a bit of a waste of a steak, a decent steak. And I must be honest that when it comes to kosher meat we only use about I think it's only about 50% of the cow. There's various reasons why we don't use certain parts of the animal, but we only use a relatively small part of the cow, and the meat is probably not always the best part of the animal. Some of it is, so you get rib and that kind of thing, but I'm not a big expert on all the different parts of the animal, but we don't always get the best part of the animal, the sort of the fattiest, parts of the the fattiest steaks. So whilst you can get a really good steak, if you go to a good quality kosher restaurant, you can get a really fantastic steak. But when you go to the butcher, you don't always get the best cuts of meat available. Absolutely, Paul, I would agree with you. The reason is that lamb, you actually don't even need to flavor. You can just roast the lamb in its own juices and it will taste amazing. You can take any piece of lamb and chuck it on the barbecue and do nothing to it, and it will still taste fantastic. Without any seasoning, without anything, it will still taste good. As long as you've got a bit of fat on there, it'll be fantastic. We've done that, Robert. I've gone through it already. Maybe I'll do a video tomorrow when I prepare it. That might be a nice idea, if my kids will let me do it, with a bit of peace and quiet. If I don't get to do it tomorrow, maybe I'll do it another time. That might be quite cool. Well, there you go, Dad. Kosher meat is really expensive. But that's one of the reasons, is that they don't actually use about half the animal. They do sell it on to non-Jewish butchers or whoever it is that they sell the meat to. And the meat is always good in terms of it's always young. So you very rarely will get any old meat from old animals. So you wouldn't get mutton or anything like that. I think generally speaking, all kosher meat is about a year old, and that's about it. In the Jewish faith, we all bless the food before we eat it. We bless all food before we eat it. We're pretty much blessing all the time, to be honest, depending on how observant you are. But I make a blessing before I put any food or any drink in my mouth. No problem, Robert. If you drop me an email, I'll email you the recipe anyway, if you like. But in terms of slaughtering, if that's what you were referring to, Daniel, then it's only a qualified ritual slaughterer that can do that. And that's a very, very highly technical job. Because whether you do or don't believe in slaughter, for us, if an animal is dispatched in a way which is even slightly diverted from the correct path, you can't actually eat the animal. You're not allowed to use the animal. Now, although it doesn't help the animal in itself, but it teaches the slaughterer to make sure that they slaughter the animal exactly as it's supposed to be done. Halal is Muslim. The Muslims do eat kosher meat, but we don't eat Muslim meat, halal meat. Essentially, the way there's two very crucial aspects to kosher slaughter. One is the sharpness of the knife. Has to be done with a knife. It's not done with a bolt gun or anything else like that, or electric shock or anything like that. And the reason for, and then the second thing is that the cut has to be precise, and it's done literally with one. The blade is unbelievably sharp. I don't know if this is going to get a little bit too gruesome for people. So if you want me to stop, I'll stop. But essentially, one of the ways that they test the sharpness of the blade, hey Senator, Aliyef Senator, how you doing? Yeah, we're at the south coast of England here at the moment. Shochet is a very special profession, yeah. One of my uncles is a ritual slaughterer, and I remember, I've said this once before, I think, on my channel. I remember I was staying in their house once, and there was a penknife lying around, and the ritual slaughterers, knife sharpening is their trade. They are unbelievable experts at sharpening knives. So you can imagine that all the knives around the house are sharp, razor sharp. Anyway, this guy had an ivory sort of covered penknife. It looked pretty run-of-the-mill kind of thing, nothing special. It was a penknife, it wasn't big in particular. And I remember I just touched it to feel the sharpness, and it went straight through my finger. It literally went in a good few millimeters without any effort. That's the sharpness of those knives. So I think one of the ways they test it, usually they test it on the back of the nail. The rabbis test them every so often. But I think one of the ways they test it is they hold the knife sharp end up and they drop a hair above it. And the hair, as it falls onto it, should be severed from its own weight. And usually, I mean, that's how one of the ways they test it, I think. So as I was saying, the sharpness of the knife is crucial, and also the cut itself. The cut, in the first instance, cuts right through the nerve, the main nerve, and essentially the animal is dead in a split second. And any movement or any jerking or anything like that is purely nervous, the nervous system. In actual fact, and that's a known fact, because I remember once, you know, there's a Jewish custom on the Day of Atonement, on Yom Kippur, for people to wave a chicken above their head as part of a... It's a ritual process anyway. I'm not going to go into the whole details of that. But just a second. But essentially, what happens is that they wave the chicken above their heads as a form of sort of, and then the chicken is dispatched, slaughtered, and then you give them to the poor. So literally on that day, thousands and thousands of chickens are given away to the poor. And so one of the great rabbis here in, well, not here, but in London, who's no longer alive actually, he died a few years ago. So what they do is he was actually doing that ceremony on the morning before the Day of Atonement. It's done just the afternoon before the Day of Atonement, and he had a shochet, which is a ritual slaughterer, on hand, so that it's also a very it's considered a very worthwhile thing to do, is that when you slaughter an animal, to cover the blood straight away out of respect. And so that was kind of it's one of the positive commandments in the Torah, in the Bible, It's called Kisui Hadam, which is the covering of the blood. So they had a slaughterer on hand so that the rabbi could do that commandment as well. And so they had dispatched the bird and put the bird, basically severed its head and put the bird in a box. And the thing was flapping around for 5 minutes afterwards. It had no head, but it was still flapping around for 5 minutes. And that's where the saying running around like a headless chicken comes from, because they still run around afterwards for a long time. So that's the nerves, the nervous system still kicking in as long as there's blood in the body. And I guess the heart is still pumping to some extent until it loses all its blood. Well, I can't attest to the loveliness of pig because I've never tried it. I think I'm going to start driving back. Alright guys, I'm going to wish you all well. That's enough for me for this evening. I wish you all a very, very, very happy and Merry Christmas. Enjoy your festivities. I'm not sure if I've gone offline here or not, but I wish you all well, and I'll catch you on the next one. I might go back again live when I'm with Wi-Fi, but I'm using my data at the moment, so I'm gonna call it a night. Thanks everybody, all the best.